time constraint today. But thankfully, I do have a list of questions that was provided to me, and I'll go through them. And I hope, most of them are really pretty simple questions to answer. So, but I just wanted, sometimes it's nicer to be able to answer some questions in person. And if people need clarification, certainly feel free to give me a call. So the first question that was given to me was to explain the extended school year program. The extended school year, I don't know really what the history of it is of extended school year here, but we didn't really change too much from last year. Our extended school year program offers opportunities for special class for our students who require a special class over the summer, which I believe is a 5.5-hour day. It begins on July 5th this year, I think it is, and ends on August, it's either July 5th or 6th, whatever that Monday is, and ends on August 13th. It's a 6-week program. So there's special class for each age group. I believe we're gonna have 2 to 3 special classes running this school year. Within the program. And it also offers opportunities for a specially designed instruction for reading or writing or math or whatever the case may be for students who've shown some significant regression and who demonstrate an inability to recoup their skills. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means within a timely manner. They would qualify from it. And also we have related services within the extended school year program. We're still in the planning stages. Some of our children do not necessarily qualify for extended school year based upon the regression recoupment requirements, but we are trying to put things in place this year, because that doesn't mean we don't want our students to still be able to maintain their skills and have opportunities to practice. So I'm working with the building principals as well as with some of our speech pathologists and our special ed teachers to figure out how we might potentially use some of our instructional software and offer it to students who we really feel could continue to use a benefit from practice throughout the summer, so that they can have access to that software over the summer if they don't necessarily qualify for extended school year. But extended school year is a CSE decision. All of our teachers who recommended extended school year have been collecting data on how our students do when they come back from break, how much time it takes to recoup skills, so that we can just add that to the conversation at our CSE meetings in the spring. So hey Desiree.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I didn't from one meeting. I apologize to everyone.
So once we get that data together, we'll know more what students are going to be receiving the extended school year, what that may look like. And like I said, we're in the beginning stages of planning it. We've posted for our staff at this point, but we're waiting to assign staff until we know how many students we have, how many sections we have, and what our needs are. So for this school year, since we've been offering in person all year, extended school year is going to be in person. We do have some children with significant medical needs, and then those will be considered on a case-by-case basis if a remote option needs to be offered to certain students. So that was the extended school year question.
Can I just ask a little further question on this? I know sometimes people have their CSE very late, and that it's difficult for parents that they don't know if their child is going to qualify for extended school year. So that makes it difficult in making other plans. And the other issue that's come up is that not all of the special ed teachers are versed in what goes on in this extended year program. So the summer program. So I think those two things, I think the easy fix is to make sure that all the teachers know what it's about. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the school psychologists know, so that's easy to get the word out. But I think sometimes it's difficult. People turn it down because they've already made other plans.
Well, go ahead, Desiree.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking to that, Mrs. Sutcliffe, we did ask the psychologist this year that if they had students who they were expecting to recommend extended school year for, to try to make those meetings earlier. Some of them have unfortunately come later because we're waiting on evaluations, or there was some more testing, or we wanted to get further regression data over the April break. So that was kind of where some of those meetings got pushed further into the season.
And the teachers, we did meet with all the staff about extended school year, what the requirements are. They have all the paperwork. They're aware, there are ongoing conversations, and obviously building psychologists sometimes field questions we're not aware of, but they should be aware of what extended school year is at this point. We've been having conversations since December or January about it. Some of our families, I know with incoming K, there was some confusion about that, and I apologize for that. We did send out a letter to parents in January that did refer to extended school year requirements, and we did try and talk about it a little bit at that webinar, but I think we have to do a better job with communicating that next school year for our new parents in the district, so that you know, they have a little bit more of an idea of what it involves. So the peer-to-peer program is moving along. That's the next thing on here. We didn't get a lot of interest in it, which I was surprised about, but I think maybe because it's a first year and the lack of interest might be somewhat because nobody really has 100% of a good answer and exactly what it's going to look like. It's like a going in circle, vicious cycle thing. We don't know what it's looks like necessarily until we know who's interested, but people aren't going to want to say they're interested until they know what it looks like. So that's kind of where we are in this circle right now. I think we have about 13 or 14 students, about 7 going into 6th grade and 6 or 7 going into high school are interested in participating. So even if that number doesn't grow, that's a nice number. It's kind of maybe a blessing in disguise, because it'll really help us for our first year to really solidify things before we have an influx of students who are interested. So we did start with the parent surveys. We've been getting a lot of them back. They're not due back until the 30th, I believe was the date we put on it. So I don't know that we've received all of them back as of yet. The next step is going to be, we're actually meeting with the lead teachers at the middle school and the high school and the best buddy coordinators next week. We're going to take those student surveys and we're going to, or the parent surveys, and we're going to start to meet with our students, depending on who the student is. It might be.
Can I just say, this for the parents on here that don't have rising 6th graders or 9th graders, can you explain what the peer-to-peer program is? I mean, I know
that's right. I forgot. We've got all different parents here. So for our children who are going into 6th grade next school year and into 9th grade next school year, we're starting to implement some of the foundational aspects of the peer-to-peer program. Mrs. Dickey, actually, I got to give you credit because I'd never heard of the program, and she shared it with us, and we really did like the program. It really offers an opportunity for us to match our students with disabilities with their peers, with their general education peers, and help build those relationships. Very similar to Best Buddies, which is why we want to pull Best Buddies into it, because we have in the middle school and high school a lot of general education students already who work with our special education students and do activities with them and pair up with them, and a lot of fun things they do with them. But it kind of takes it to the next level. So even though we're tapping into the Best Buddies program to provide access for our students, it's going to be a component of it, but it's going to extend beyond that is our thought moving forward. So for instance, a component of the Peers to Peers program is having an elective in the middle school and the high school. We couldn't plan that for this school year because it has to go through a board approval process to have an elective, but we'd like to move forward with that elective in the middle school and high school. So it would be great for our general education students. It teaches them about different disabilities and what they may look like and how they may manifest and interacting. And it just has a really nice curriculum that I think builds awareness, and it also be supportive to our students. But another component of it is having activities to match them up with. So an example may be, as we start, thank you, Mrs. Sutcliffe, this is our first year. So we wanted to make sure, especially not knowing what the fall is going to look like, Lord willing, it will be normal. But we wanted to make sure our first year was something manageable. So what it may look like for this full year, after we meet with the students and determine what their interests are, we're going to try and pair our students with students with like interests. So if we have a student coming into 9th grade who really loves art, is there somebody in the Best Buddies program who also really loves art? So that maybe they can go to the after school art programs together. Maybe they can, when they meet up during the day at certain points of their day, if they have periods or lunch periods, they can do some kind of art related activity. They have a topic for conversation that could be facilitated. So we really want to get a feel for what our students are interested in, who are the special education students, so that when we match them with a buddy, it can maybe be somebody that they can really form a connection with because they'll have similar interests to explore. So something we discussed, as a group that maybe we would consider is, okay, so they're going to a new school in the fall as 6th or 9th graders. So maybe we hook them up over the summer with their buddies and they can start to correspond somewhat. We can have a scavenger hunt before they so they can get familiar with the new building and do some kind of a contest with their buddies and have a scavenger hunt around the building. We've been talking about various ideas of how we can make it work. So, again, I know that it's a little disconcerting to make this decision as a parent, whether you want your child to be involved, not knowing 100% what it looks like. But I think after we have an opportunity to speak with the children, some might require a lot of peer support. Maybe that peer support would be a peer coming in during lunch break into the classroom to really kind of support our children who use communication devices, to have like a peer interaction component facilitated by a speech pathologist. Maybe that's what that would look like for some children. For other children, we have parents of children who maybe have counseling and they're having difficulty making friends, and they want to just have that access to a peer going into the high school so they can have that person to find in the lunchroom, or they can have that person to walk with in the hallway. So it might look very different for different children based upon what their comfort level is and what their needs are. So by not having an exact answer, it's because we really need to dive into what our needs are for our children before we do. But as we'll keep you updated as we move along. And when we get through this next step of meeting with our students and identifying interests and needs, then we can give more concrete examples of what some of our thoughts are for the fall. So that's where the peer-to-peer program is. It's still a work in progress. And, you know, we're in the investigative stage at this point to make sure we structure it in an appropriate way. The peer-to-peer program is by no means impacted by the budget. That's a question. Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with the budget. As I'm sure many of you are aware, in special education, we have a grant, a federal grant, which is outside of the budget. If we have any costs associated with the peer-to-peer, it would be coming through our federal grant. The beauty of this program is there aren't a lot of costs necessarily associated with it. We have staff who's volunteered and wants to be a part of it. So it's really not a high cost program per se. When it comes to curriculum development for the elective, we might have some cost associated with that, but that's okay. You know, we'll support that as a district. So the answer is no. There's no impact by the budget whatsoever. Okay. Kids in the special class with language-based disorders, how are reading comprehension challenges being identified at the K-2 levels? What steps are being taken once they're identified? What specific data research-driven programs is the district implementing to address reading comprehension needs? And how will the teachers be trained on these specific programs? That's a great question. So it gets down to the science of reading here, and I know I don't have too much time, so I won't go crazy with this, but in K-2, 85% of our students who are diagnosed with a reading-based disability, it's usually a disability in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency. Those are the primary areas of deficit in reading in K-2. With that being said, there is a subset of children who do have true comprehension deficits. But it's not a simple response to the question. And I feel like I need to kind of like do a little aside, because in that K-2 level, we have to really kind of piece out and be a diagnostic and determine why there's a breakdown in comprehension. Some of our students, the breakdown in comprehension when they're reading is because of difficulty with fluency, difficulty decoding, that all leads to a breakdown in comprehension. And sometimes it's a true language-based comprehension difficulty. And though I think that maybe that's what this question is referring to. So those students, you know, again, as far as diagnostics goes, looking at a true diagnosis for a comprehension deficit within reading, we're going to be tapping into our speech language pathologists, because typically there's some overlap within the speech arena. If there's a breakdown in comprehension in reading, a lot of times that is mirrored in their speech and language. It may be because of difficulty with vocabulary. It may be with difficulty with inferencing. It may be because of difficulty with just true understanding of language. So it's a multifaceted approach to identifying students with those areas of deficit. And when we do identify students with a true comprehension deficit, there are several things we can do. We are upping our training within district with Linda Mood-Bell, visualizing and verbalizing. For some of those students, that would be an appropriate intervention for them. We're also looking at, I can't remember, Talkies, that's what it's called. There's a program prior to visualizing and verbalizing for the younger students called Talkies. So students who don't have a lot of language but still are demonstrating difficulty within comprehension, that's a program we may look into implementing within the district as well. We've already started the conversations about that. Really, you know, the professional development we're doing with Childmind is very much supporting this within our buildings. I think the biggest hurdle and what needs to really be addressed first with all this is truly understanding the science of reading, understanding the 5 main components that can lead to breakdowns in reading, understanding how to identify which area is impacting our students most, and then making sure whatever we provide for our students is prescriptive in nature to address the deficit area. So if we have a child who has a breakdown in comprehension because of a true language-based learning disability, and you're just hammering them with phonics, and that's not the reason why they're having the breakdown, then you're not fixing anything. So we need to make sure that we have that true ability to be diagnostic in our abilities. And that is something we're working on throughout this school year, and we'll continue to work on next school year. Another thing we're looking at is the Keys to Literacy Suite, which is another program that tackles comprehension. It goes across content. It's, there's a K to 3 and a 4 to 12 version. So it's something we're kind of looking at. Would that be impactful for some of our students? But I think, as you all know, as parents with students with special needs, there's no one program that meets every student's needs. There's just not. If we had a magic key, one program that's going to help all of our students, believe me, everybody would have it at this point. So I think the most important thing we can do as a district is to, as educators, be able to identify where the need is and to be able to match that intervention with the need. So we're not wasting time addressing the wrong thing, and we're addressing what the students really need to move forward. Another, just a little aside, we have Fast Forward this school year. The implementation wasn't fantastic. I'll be completely honest with you, with everything going on with COVID and everything else. We do use it with some students. We want to move forward with that implementation next school year, because Fast Forward has a lot of research basis in helping students on the autism spectrum, in addition to students with real auditory processing and attentional difficulties. So there is a really strong evidence basis behind using that with students who have dyslexia and who have associated disorders with dyslexia. So, again, it's not a one size fits all. Not every student's going to do well with Fast Forward. Not every student is going to not do well with Fast Forward. So we really have to be prescriptive in what we do, see if things work with students. If it's not working and we're not seeing progress, move on to something that may be more effective. So we do have a bunch of things in place. And as far as the professional development goes, I've been speaking with Linda Mood-Bell and getting things set up for the spring as well as throughout the summer with some of our trainings. We're also looking into bringing in Seeing Stars as a potential tool as well to work on word automaticity with some of our students with special needs. Again, it's not going to be for every student, but I want to make sure students have everything and teachers have everything they need in their toolbox. If they identify a need in the student, what can I pull to address that need? We don't want to keep fitting a round peg into a square hole. Wilson's fantastic, but it's not great for everybody. There are certain students who require Wilson or an OG-based approach, but not everybody requires that. So we're just trying to expand upon our toolbox and our interventions for our teachers. So I hope that answered your questions. What writing programs are going to be piloted next year? So I sent out a survey to all of our teachers, K through 12, and that was our starting point. And the responses were really interesting. Like, one of the questions were, do you feel like your students are weak in the area of writing? And, something you never see in a survey, it came back 100% yes. So, I think we're going down the right path here and looking at writing interventions for our students. It's certainly something that's needed. Again, I wanted to dive into where our teachers saw the weaknesses. Obviously, we're looking at testing and stuff too, but in the classroom, boots on the ground, where do you see the weaknesses with writing with our students? I'm trying to think. I wish I had the survey in front of me. For the most part, it was interesting. The biggest areas of weakness that teachers are identifying were sentence writing, both complex and simple sentence writing, paragraph writing, structuring sentences and paragraphs, grammar, and vocabulary. So those were the biggest areas that came forth as being areas of difficulty for our students in the writing process. There were a few teachers, I have a feeling they were probably secondary teachers if I dove into the data, who did say, coming up with topics and the whole writing process is a struggle for some of our students. I expected to see that be more of an area of concern for our teachers, but it wasn't. It was really those basic writing skills, like just writing it, like I said, writing simple and complex sentences, and the grammatical portion, the vocabulary came up across the board as areas they felt that we should be able to address. So we are currently in the process, and Desiree, jump in if you'd like, because I know you did some of the footwork on this. We're currently in the process of figuring out what writing programs per se are out there that we could potentially pilot to meet our students' needs, how they fit into our existing programs, how we can ensure that they're available throughout the day for our students, because we don't want students to just have writing like one snippet of the day and then not be carried over anyplace else. So we're looking at a couple different programs right now, but we might expand upon the list. Our first thing is Writing Revolution, which I know many parents are familiar with in this group. So that's one of the programs we're looking at. Another one we're looking at is the Sims writing program. And Desiree, you spoke with them.
I did. I had an opportunity to meet with the rep from Sims. And when I worked in Glen Cove as a teacher, we actually implemented Sims, both the sentence writing protocol as well as the paragraph writing. And it's really explicit instruction in breaking down those sentence writing skills, as Jean had mentioned: simple sentences, complex sentences, compound sentences, and then complex compound sentences. So it takes the students through that arc. And after that, they would move into paragraph writing strategy, which really teaches them to build the different kinds of topic sentences, detailed sentences, and then clincher sentences. It's very organized. There's a lot of that repetitive practice until mastery before moving forward. They are going to send me over some of the sample materials because things have changed since I taught it about 10 years ago. But it definitely seems like something that might be worthwhile to look into for our students, particularly in those resource rooms and skill-based classes where they can spend a good amount of time, because it's very structured, and they want to make sure that you're doing it with fidelity, both on time and through the process.
Okay, so the starting point as far as the PD goes for that, we already have some teachers trained in Writing Revolution, which is a great thing. We do have, we've always had a lead teacher in the high school and the middle school. We were able to repurpose a position. We do have one of our really strong teachers, Ms. Gonzalez. I don't know if anybody knows her, who's going to be serving in the capacity of a lead teacher for the elementary level for special ed in general. So we're going to take those 3 teachers and we are going to train them in the Sims writing program. We're just starting with those 3 this school year. They can be trained to become trainers, and then they can train the rest of our staff. But I wanted them to be trained in it first, because then what I want to do is I want to figure out, comparatively, the Writing Revolution and the Sims, which was better for our students and their needs. Trial it for some students, see what we think works best. So that's where we are. We're in the beginning stages of that as well, but we are going to be piloting 2, if not more, programs next school year to determine what best meets the needs of our students. So more to come on that. Okay. Primary school special education class offerings. So, I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to see the budget presentations. These remainder of these questions, a lot of them were discussed at that. So I encourage you to go back and look. But in the primary school special education classes buildings, we're going to have resource room across all 3 buildings. We're actually looking for a new resource room teacher this school year. We have very high standards for that position, because I feel like that's one of the more important positions in the district. We want to make sure that whoever holds that position has a very strong background in literacy. So more to come on that. We also have related services at all 3 buildings, primary buildings. At Homestead, there's going to be a kindergarten ICT classroom and a first grade ICT classroom. And there's also going to be an 812 classroom at Homestead and a 1212 classroom at Homestead. So, and those will both be K/1 classes. So, we're still actually chairing the incoming kindergarten meetings. So what the breakdown of those classes looks like at Homestead as far as the number of students in them or how they're going to be broken apart, I'm not 100% sure. But the 8 versus the 12, they're not going to be very filled classes. Both of them are going to be well under 8. I think we have 4 or 5 students in each section, maybe a couple more in the 1212. So they're not going to be very packed out classes. But just as I'm sure you're all aware, also from meetings and conversations, our 812s and our 12 throughout the district and our 1212 in Homestead are going to have they're going to have a teaching assistant assigned to those classes. We do have one teaching assistant. I'm not sure where she's going to go, who actually has their BCBA as well, which will be a nice thing. So, we're really trying to stack those classes so that we can really individualize the instruction as much as possible. And to have a teaching assistant in there who's also a licensed teacher who can provide instruction is going to be a wonderful thing for our kids. So that's what the primary buildings look like. The ICT classes in the 2 elementary schools and the new 1212 at the high school. I guess I'll tackle the ICT and then you can tackle the 1212. All
okay.
Right. That's right. Okay. So the ICT classes in the 2 elementary schools, I'll say up front, I've spoken with the parents involved with this. This is a pilot program, but I have no reason to think it won't be successful. I'm actually extremely excited that we are doing these, for lack of a better thing to call them, supported ICT classrooms at Stewart and Stratford. What these classrooms are in essence, and I hate to steal the terminology from the city because it's not exactly the same as the city's NEST programs, but it's similar. We're taking a general education classroom and we're taking our self-contained students in 4th grade over at Stewart and in 5th grade over at Stratford, and we're placing that class as a whole entity into a general education classroom. So it is an ICT classroom in that you have 2 teachers in there. The teaching assistant who will be assigned to that self-contained class will also come into the classroom. So you're gonna have 2 teachers and a licensed teaching assistant who will be in that classroom with the students. So those children would technically be for 4 hours, and I don't remember the exact number of hours, 4 hours, 4.5 hours, something like that on the IEP, in an integrated co-teaching setting. So they will have access to, the same educational content as their general education peers. But since we work in workshop models, especially in the areas of ELA and math, they might be exposed to the mini lesson, and then they'll break into groups. If they've got the capabilities to be in a heterogeneous group with other students when they break into small group work, that's going to be the plan. If they require more of a skill-based work when they break into small groups within the workshop model, they might go to a table with the special education teacher or the teaching assistant, however it's broken down, and work on skills-based work associated with whatever the lesson is. Built into those programs is also a pullout, which is going to be on paper a 12-1-2 pullout, even though there aren't 12 students within the classroom. Well, they'll go into a separate classroom, a special class, and they'll work on their IEP goals, get specially designed instruction for reading, whatever the case may be that individual students need will occur within that pullout. So that's what those programs look like. They're different than a traditional integrated co-teaching class because it's a fewer number of students. We carefully place the students within that program because in a general or the typical ICT classroom, they'd be in there all day throughout the day without any pullouts. These students, we want to still be able to meet their academic needs. And that, in some instances, we need additional support with behavioral and social emotional needs. So the teaching assistant is imperative for the success of those programs. So that's what those look like in Stewart and Stratford. There's also a similar model that we've started to try and implement within the middle school. We haven't completely landed on what that's going to look like. So we have a very small 8th grade special class of only 3 students, and it's great to be able to offer the exposure to a bigger class size, to the content, with providing support up in the middle school prior to going to high school when now we're at credit bearing classes. So let's see if we can get those students into bigger class sizes and more integrated, because especially with our students with autism, but all of our students in general, the social emotional piece and the integration, it just helps them to move that much more forward through their education. Laptops. This was an interesting question. I don't even think, I'm sorry.
The 12-1-2.
Oh, the 12-1-2. I'm sorry, Desiree.
No, it's okay. So part of the question had been, could we explain a little more the new 12-1-2 at the high school? So that 12-1-2 is really a re-implementation of the ACES program, so the Academic Career and Exploration Skills program. It's offered in English, math, social studies, and science in that 12-1-2 setting. Those are going to be preparatory courses that really focus on the foundations of each of those content area curriculum. The goal being to eventually be able to transition those kids into the Regents courses when appropriate. If students require more significant support, the CSE then would have to explore alternate pathways, including consideration of NISA and or the skills achievement commencement credential. The emphasis of the ACES classes are going to be teaching the skills so that our students can meaningfully participate in Regents level courses, and then individualized pathways towards a diploma in the future. They are credit-bearing courses, but because they don't fulfill the requirements for commencement level core content areas, that's a mouthful, as aligned with the New York State learning standards, specifically that 4 years of English and social studies and the 3 years of math and science credits, students' pathway in this program would possibly be extended past the 4 years in order to complete the required courses, related services, ADL, and vocational training for those CDOS standards. Okay, I think we lost Janine. I will look at the next question we had was that having laptops at their fingertips in schools and at home, ads, sidebars, access to music, audio, YouTube seems to be very distracting for a lot of our students, especially those with ADD or ADHD needs. We are looking into that with the IT department. We do understand that that is an issue. I know that they do a lot that they can to try to limit the amount of pop-ups and ads, but certainly things like YouTube are accessible. So that's something that we will look into. I think it's an issue for all of our students across the district, not just our particular students, but as the question asked, definitely those who struggle with the attentional piece. Then we had, can you still have a parent advocate at your CPSC or CSE meeting? Absolutely. You are welcome to bring anybody that you would like to your own child's meeting at any time. those were all of the questions that we had been given already. I'm looking in the chat and I don't see any additional questions.
There was one that we skipped.
Has to jump off.
I can read it. What's the plan for implementing a true multi-sensory approach to literacy for students who are not learning with the Teachers College curriculum and leveled readers? And what sort of certification will the literacy specialists have?
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm just going to look for that one so that I can hear the wording. Again, I don't process as well what it's.
I can type it in.
Right now. Okay, you want to get on?
I'm sorry, I had to pop out and start another meeting in my office. So now I'm with Desiree here. I apologize.
From the last two, and then
okay. So what was the question we missed? I'm sorry.
It's the one about what is the plan for implementing a true multisensory?
For kids in the special classes with language-based disorder, how are reading comprehension challenges being identified at the, oh no, that's not it. Which one?
Further down. Further down.
Oh, what is the plan? I see it. What is the plan for implementing true multisensory approach to literacy for students who are not learning the Teachers College curriculum and level readers? You know, there's been a lot of work done in this district, and I can't take credit for it because a lot of it preceded me. There's been a lot of training going on with Wilson Reading, and we actually went through our elementary teachers. Most of our elementary teachers, almost all, are Wilson trained, but we have a lot who are now level 1 Wilson certified, and many going on for a Wilson level 2 certification and above. So that's a great thing, which will help our teachers. But as far as, let me look at the question again. What sort of certification will all of our special education teachers are certified to teach reading. You know, that falls under the purview of a special education teacher. So as far as certification goes, I guess that answers that question. But we are, of course, trying to build the capacity, you know, and that's when I started saying about the Wilson, but not just Wilson. Not all students need Wilson. We're building the capacity of our teachers, you know, really with being able to identify what students' specific needs are and matching interventions with those needs. And how that fits into TC, listen, we have a workshop model, you know, so that works very well with providing interventions. We currently have, I'm trying to schedule another date. We have Childmind going into Stratford School, and we're going to be sending Childmind into Stewart School as well to work with our integrated co-teaching teachers per se, so that we can establish routines and scheduling within the classrooms that, you know, when a mini lesson is presented, which is typically how a workshop model works, and then they break up into small group instruction, how can you now meet those children's needs within the small group instruction, whether it be providing Wilson within those classroom rotations within the class to carry over those Wilson skills, whether it be, you know, maybe you've got a comprehension skills group going on in the ICT class and you are pulling for something like visualizing and verbalizing. So we're working with Childmind to figure out a way, or to help our teachers find a path forward to, no matter what setting a child is, being able to meet their needs within the classroom setting. So I hope that answers the questions. But as far as the certification goes, again, all special educators are trained in reading and certified to provide specialized instruction in reading. But of course, you know, we always want to match our students' needs with teachers who can best meet their needs. So ongoing training is going on. Okay. Any other questions? I'm so sorry. I don't like to feel rushed like this. I don't even know. My calendar is really ridiculous this morning. I've got my secretary over letting the parents and the teams in next door, so and they're waiting for me to rejoin them. So I'm going to have to go back next door.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. Can I ask something? I'm sorry, it's Karen Butt.
Sure. Hi, how are you?
Good. It was mentioned that parent advocates are allowed at the meetings.
Of course.
But in the past, and maybe I'm thinking of a wrong person, it was the district that brought those people in. Is that still not happening?
No, so in the past, the parent members used to be mandated members of the CSE meeting. They're no longer mandated members, but we do provide parent members if somebody wants a parent. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody come with you, hear everything you're hearing, be able to process it with you after the meeting, have somebody there who's been through it before. I think it can be an intimidating process. So certainly you can bring parent members. There is a training that goes into being a parent member. Mrs. Sutcliffe or Mrs. Sack or somebody who's been here longer than the two of us might know better than we do who the parents are who are parent members here.
I don't think they used to keep a list, but they haven't.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's why that is why I'm asking, because I know people who were on the list who have not been called at all. And I know I've offered my services in the past and was never called. So,
You were never
and I
called.
thought it was run by PPS, quite honestly.
Yeah, Neha just said that they had a list last year. So you guys would know better than I do if they have a list.
Okay, I will locate the list, and if a parent should never be denied being able to bring another parent member with them to the meeting. So if that's happening, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
I think the issue is that parents don't know that they can bring somebody.
Right, exactly. Especially for the younger ones.
Yeah, I don't think they are being denied. I think that they just don't know that that's an option.
You know what? Let me locate the list, and then I will share it with Mrs. Sutcliffe and Mrs. Sack, and we can make that available to SEPTA members so people know they can reach out, who the people are who they can reach out to. Is that okay? Is that a good way about it, you think?
Fine.
Okay. All right. I will find that information for you. Okay.
This is Effie Campbell. Can I just add to that?
Sure.
We years ago, when I became went to the BOCES training for parent members, we used to get certificates and turn them in to PPS, and they kept the list. So I think where people are unclear is that in the past, it used to be on your CSC invitation letter that a parent member had been invited, and you could opt not to have them there, but they would be there if you didn't. So just giving you some background on that. This is before your time. And it was actually
and that used to be the case. That used to have to be the case. You used to have to invite them unless the parent opted out. That's no longer the case. Now we only invite them if the parent asks for them.
But I think parents with younger.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think parents with younger kids just have no idea that you can have someone there and that people are available and trained. So I think that's just something that needs to go out from the district to. Sure. And
I think my biggest hurdle at this point is trying to figure out who's been trained and who hasn't. So I'm going to have to look back through my predecessor's old files and find out who the trained people are.
Right.
Okay. But that's certainly something. And listen, a parent can always bring, a friend with them too. Like it doesn't have to be a trained person per se. You can always just bring.
I don't think they know that.
Yeah.
I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be communicated to people that you can bring someone for support to your meeting.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a lot of information coming at parents. I feel like this year it's a little better because I hope it's a little better because we've been trying to have those phone calls before the meeting so parents can really ask questions and process. But I know sitting at a table can be difficult with a whole bunch of people saying stuff. Sometimes you just want another set of ears, so you know what you're hearing. So absolutely, we'll get that information out. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, Janine, that you have to run, but maybe Desiree can answer this. Someone chatted in once that you talked about the new 1212, but they want to know what other special ed classes there are at the high school.
So there's also the 1211. So I didn't talk about that because I wasn't sure if, again, we were trying to move through quickly. So the 1211, are the.
I'm sorry. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry. Those are the commencement level Regents classes. They're aligned with New York State standards. They're available in English 9, pre-algebra or algebra, living environment, and global 9 right now. Those special class environment allows for more student-teacher contact. It's the simplified language, concepts broken down, the things that would typically happen in that smaller class, but they're maintaining the construct of the New York State required curriculum. They follow the rigor of a Regents class, but they're reinforced with that supplemental information and personnel, as well as supports for instruction, learning, vocabulary. Additionally, oftentimes students in those classes who receive speech, the speech teachers and therapists will push into those classes to support the language in the curriculum when it's appropriate. And these classes culminate in Regents exams. So it's Algebra 1, Living Environment, Earth Science. They continue higher into the grades as well. This was just the 9th grade ones that I was particularly saying when I said English 9, pre-algebra or algebra. So that's the difference between the 1211 and the 1212 for next year.
Thank you. And then someone put in, with so many options for reading programs, how do you evaluate which is the best fit for each student? When does that happen and how long does it take?
I mean, I think that Janine did talk a little bit about some of these new reading programs that we're looking to implement, and there are diagnostics with those. I know that in the primary schools, they are using some diagnostic testing down in the primary. And again, it's very individualized as a student's need pops up, or we see that something is going on with the child, it would really depend on, there's so many assessments, and we often then do look to our specialists. As Ms. Velez said, Diana Gonzalez is kind of going to be an overseeing role there for the primary and elementaries next year. And we have the lead teachers in the middle and high school. So they'll really be able to work with the teachers about what are appropriate diagnostics and assessments so that we can really pinpoint, as Janine said, the true area of deficit and need.
Okay. And then someone put in, how does the school evaluate all 7 sensory systems?
I'm not really sure that I understand that question. Mrs. Zakinet, I see, is the one who wrote it. So I don't know if you want to type or give a little more. I'm not sure that I understand how we would evaluate all 7 sensory systems. I'm sorry.
My son was evaluated on a speech that includes auditory system. He's now being evaluated in vision, but there are 7 sensory systems now that science have acknowledged. One and 2 of them are very important: the proprioception and the vestibular systems. And sometimes when there is deficit of those, there could be impact in the behavior, impact on the gross and fine motor skills, impact on attention deficits.
So I think I understand a little more of your question. I mean, certainly we look at a child globally, and we try to identify all of those need areas where evaluations would be appropriate. If we do notice a student is having difficulties with fine motor or gross motor issues, we would look for a PT evaluation or an OT evaluation, a vision evaluation. When a child is put up for a referral, for an initial referral to the CSE, the teachers and that team really come together and consider what assessments and evaluations would be appropriate for children to have. And oftentimes parents do bring to the table their own documentation from outside assessments in very specific areas.
So does the school does those evaluations on a regular basis or not?
So when a child is brought to the CSE for an initial referral, they're given a full battery of assessments, again, based on an individualization of what it seems the child's deficit areas are at that time. Parents can always request additional evaluations in certain areas if they see a need for it, or if they feel that there are concerns. And parents oftentimes do additional evaluations outside of the school if there are very specific need areas that maybe wouldn't be covered under an educational overall assessment.
How can we include on the school system that those all 7 systems are evaluated? Because
I don't know, Mrs. Zakinet, that I have the exact answer that you're looking for. I know that we've had several conversations offline. I think that maybe, we can continue some of those conversations that are very specific to you and your child at this crucial moment outside of this venue.
Okay, the next, another question that was asked, Janine talked about training some of the strong teachers, and then they were going to train other teachers. Those teachers that are first to be trained, they'll still be teaching their regular classes as well?
So some of our teachers will be doing a mix. They'll be teaching some classes and also spending some portion of their day supporting other teachers in the district. The notion being that our strongest teachers would really be great trainers to help build capacity of some of our newer and younger teachers so that we would have a stronger staff all around.
So how would a parent know if your teacher is not, is it a regular classroom teacher?
So it's going to be like overall staffing. So when your child gets their schedule next year, whoever their teacher is their teacher. They're not going to leave their child's class some of the time. It would, for example, be a teacher maybe would only teach 2 classes in Stratford and spend the rest of her day doing stuff out in the other buildings. It's not going to be sometimes in and out of a class. Is that
okay? And then I didn't catch this part either. When she talked about the ICT classes for the K1s, is there an ICT class for each kindergarten class and each first grade class in all 3 buildings? Or
no, ICT is only in Homestead, and there's 1 section in kindergarten in Homestead and 1 section in first grade in Homestead.
Okay.
I see Mrs. Trustee wrote the question. So also, just again, for all of those classes in Homestead, there is going to be an 812, which is a K1 mix. There's going to be a 1212, which is a K1 mix. There is an ICT K and an ICT first. And then, of course, we have resource room and related services. At the high school, other than the 12-1-2 classes. So the high school does also have 8-1-2. So the high school has the full continuum of services. We have 8-1-2, 12-1-1, 12-1-2, ICT, resource, and related services. So there's the full gamut over there.
And then Francis says, would it be appropriate to highlight the importance of having an IT department resolve the laptop issues for the beginning of next year or sooner?
Yeah, and certainly again, we were just given these questions a couple of within this last week. So we're gonna follow up with IT and we'll keep you guys posted on what we see. And certainly I would think that by the beginning of next year, we would hope that there's some more gains made in a lot of this technology stuff. I know they've done so much and in this world that's ever changing, and it's been a crazy year. So they've done a phenomenal job, and certainly I'll make sure that this is on their radar.
Okay, one more. At the high school, other than the 12-1-2 classes, what else is planned? Will Best Buddies continue?
Yeah, so I addressed what else is planned is all of the other continuum. Best Buddies will continue, and my understanding is at the high school it's up and running currently. I know at the middle school, I think some of the COVID restrictions have prohibited from really having it flourish this year, but I think Best Buddies is in full practice. I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I think they are doing it. Remotely?
Yeah.
Okay.
Savon wants to ask a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
Sorry, my battery's running low. I just wanted to add to Effie's comment before, and then what you and Janine were saying before about the lower grade kids. I mean, I have 3 high school, middle school, Stuart, that are gen ed, and then 1 special ed. I didn't know any of this coming in. I cannot highly recommend more to do more webinars, to give more help, to have understanding. I'm sitting right now with a 2nd and 4th grade parent that is floored by so much of what's being said, that's starting to go through some evaluations and things. It's just unknown. It's unknown for the advocate. How do you get educated? What testings that you do? Who you can bring in. I mean, that I personally know, but most people don't know. And I do get that question asked. Home therapists, things like that don't get asked for their input or their evaluations. There's just a lot of unknowns for the parent of little kids coming in. And rather than learning it through, failing or succeeding in a way or through other parents, it would be a lot easier having this sort of webinar or, questions in advance, as well as being able to discuss it, but say, how do I get my evaluation? Who do I ask? How long to get, like the simple things? Yes, you can go and find that out. But when your child has any sort of small issue, you get so overwhelmed. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to look for.
Mrs. Chapman, I thank you so much for bringing it up. You guys all know that Janine and I were new this year. She started July 1st and I started kind of midsummer. And so to know that, you guys missed out on all of that, it's something that really can help us now for the late spring and summer coming in. I think that maybe one of the things that would work for us best is if Mrs. Sutcliffe, Mrs. Sack, if you could help kind of maybe survey some of these primary parents and find out.
I was just thinking that maybe we can, over the summer,
a list of like what kind of webinars and brochures and information.
Parents of the younger ones, what did you find out today that you didn't know? Because obviously not everybody is on here. And between the district and Septa, hopefully we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to be able to bring you more presentations or just even resources. We could create some brochures and some resources with, all that kind of stuff. We don't know what we don't know until you tell us. So I really do appreciate, especially you guys who are on the front lines of these youngest kids coming into the primary.
And then there was a question.
I do see that the peer-to-peer surveys only went out to transitioning, so incoming 6th graders and incoming 9th graders. So if your child was not in that age group, they would not have gotten a peer-to-peer survey. So I see
agreeing with Savon, so we do have our work cut out to get more information.
Yeah, that would be very helpful for us. So I do appreciate that. Okay, are there any other questions?
And then if after Desiree logs off, if everybody stays on, we're just going to give a few updates. And then if people want to ask people on the board or other parents on here questions, feel free to stay on. So if
So that's all for me then.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's so nice to see some of you and hear everybody's voices. We'll see you all soon.
Okay,
Bye.
take care. Okay, so I'll get started. So of course, we're always looking for volunteers for next year. There's usually spots on the board as a school director, on the curriculum, be a curriculum rep, or a site-based rep. All the descriptions are on our website. And then of course, feel free to ask anybody on the board if you have further questions, like exactly if what the time commitment is. We see a lot of new names on here, so we'd love to get some more new people, especially the parents in the younger grades. That way you can help us find out what you need to know and help us get the word out. There's a virtual transition fair on Monday at 6. I know I got an email from the high school with the link. So if you didn't get it, you can reach out to Mandy Stefankevich. She's the head of guidance.
It's also on our site.
Oh, okay, great. But if you have any questions, she's the person to do it. She's head of guidance and one of the assistant principals over at the high school. Some of you may know that the last, I don't know, maybe, well, it didn't happen last year, but 8 years prior to that, the Griffith family ran the Autism Ball, which is our biggest fundraiser. So obviously we couldn't have it last year. We had kind of a virtual dance party. And this year we're trying to, working with the Griffith family to do something outdoors, working with the district to see if that's going to happen. So if you have a middle schooler, we're looking to do one for each grade at the middle school. And if you want to get involved and help us out, please let me know. We're always looking for volunteers for that. And then I'm going to pass it over to Carol to give the Treasury update.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Currently, our balance right now is $38,938.26. Outstanding currently is $2,386.89. We do have some highlights of what we have budgeted for, what we have spent, just to give you guys an overview. Each year, Septa gives 5 $1,000 checks at the PTA Septa Awards night at the high school. We've also budgeted $1,500 towards getting the word out on the budget. We budgeted $1,000 towards the Cuz Kathleen Cares event. We have paid $650 towards the 8th Adventure Land Trip t-shirts. And we've paid $2,000 towards the lawn signs for the high school seniors. And we've paid $500 towards the May soiree for the district senior citizens. So that's just some highlights of Treasury.
Okay, thank you. And then Erin is going to give she's our budget and legislative rep, and she's going to give us an update on what's going on with the budget.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. So just an update on the budget. So the budget vote is May 18th from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Garden City High School. Absentee ballots have to get to the district clerk by 5 p.m. on the 18th. And if you'd like to apply for an absentee ballot, I believe you have to call central administration. So that's the school district central administration. So between PTA and Septa, obviously there's a big push to publicize getting people out to vote. I think the percentage I heard of is 30% of Garden City has children in the school district. So obviously, in a sense, we're in a minority. So any year that the budget is up for a vote, there's always a nervousness that the people who don't have children in the schools are going to vote it down. So just to let you know what the recourse for that is, the district has 2 options of what comes next if the budget gets voted down in May. And the first option is they can, hold on, make sure I have it right. They can adopt the budget with a 0% tax levy increase, or they can place the same budget or a revised budget before the voters again in June. So there is a plan. It obviously is a decrease in funds. I'm sure there's more of a nuanced discussion that could be had around what that means. I don't have the specifics of what gets cut if they go to an austerity or they decide to do a 0% tax increase. That's something that I believe the superintendent did talk about at the budget meetings. So obviously they're going to look for things that are not immediate, cut those things. But again, I don't know what that specifically looks like. So in terms of what the PTA and Septa is doing to advertise, to get up word that we would like you to vote for the budget, there are going to be mailers going home, like fact sheets about the budget, budget backpack flyers, possibly emailed to the students. This is something used to, in the pre-COVID days, remember getting a flyer with facts. They're going to look to email them. There's going to be a full page ad in the Garden City News. The district May soiree for senior citizens. Senior citizens used to have an event at the high school, and it was a way to show off what great things the school district is doing to people who might not otherwise know. And the May soiree is an attempt to let the voting citizens know how great our district is. There's an all schools meeting on May 8th where we're going to talk about and advertise for voting the budget. On May 10th at 1 p.m. and 7:30 p.m., the superintendent is going to have a budget chat. I'm sure they'll be taking questions in advance, but Dr. Sinha will be going through the budget with parents who are on the Zoom call. The PTA is looking to buy Vote Yes lawn signs. We had them last year. You might have seen them around town a little bit. Social media reminders will go out. There will be flyers sent to area preschools. Community Lutheran, I think was the Garden City Preschool. They will get the information to hopefully give to parents, to remind parents who are living in our district to please vote for the budget. The property owners associations will also be given information about it. And the biggest way to do it is word of mouth. Encourage your friends, encourage neighbors to vote for the budget. That's what I have right now. I don't know if anyone has anything in particular, but yes, go ahead.
Add when speaking to Dr. Sinha about what happens if the budget does fail, the first thing to go will be some things in athletics and the arts. So that's, band and art, art supplies. And so I think it's really behooves everyone to really look at the budget and, of course, we don't want to cut anything. So, think before you vote. I know there's some people on social media that are pushing to vote no on the budget, but I think the only person it will hurt, or the only people it will hurt, it won't hurt her, it won't hurt Dr. Sinha, it won't hurt the Board of Ed, it will hurt our kids. So I think that there's a misunderstanding of why you should vote yes for the budget. And years ago, I don't remember how long ago it was, that the budget didn't pass, and people were very angry that it didn't pass because things got cut. I mean, they were talking about cutting APs at the high school. So it's no joke if the budget doesn't pass. So if anybody has questions, you could ask me, you could ask Erin. If we don't know the answer, we can you could ask Danielle, you can ask anybody on the board, and we can, if we don't know the answer, we can certainly ask.
I was just gonna say, are you guys a little bit scared of what's happening in social media? I mean, and what can we do? Like, can we get those flyers for the budget? Can we encourage people
I'm working with the PTA to try to get something out there that shows people what happens if the budget doesn't pass. I think that's a
great idea.
And I'm trying to get we're just working on the wording and who, hopefully PTA will want to do it. I spoke to Friends of Music. I'm going to reach out to Friends of STEAM. But I think, like Erin said, the best way to do it is by word of mouth, to get the word out.
I think absentee ballots would be a great idea. I mean, listen, we just had an election. Clearly that worked. So it's a thing of, if we can get that, if we can encourage everybody to do it, I'd be more than happy to help in whatever way. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
And if
Another thing.
Hi, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Effie. Something that I want to add to that, when talking to people, especially people with young kids, have to remind them, once things get cut, they don't come back.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen. And that's a great thing to say to people, because they're like, oh, so what? The budget's not going to pass. What's the big deal? They don't understand what that means for the district and for the future of our kids. So when people ask you why I should vote for the budget, remind them of that programs get cut, they're not coming back.
And it's not just the parents of young kids. There's parents of older kids that don't understand either.
Yeah, but they don't want to understand, Megan.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to add into this was, I know there was discussion. I'm going to look to find out more. In the past, we've the PTA and the schools have always used, the schools more specifically, I think the PTA has promoted it. There would be a vote for which Italian ice flavor for field day at the same time as the budget vote. So you were going in to vote for the budget, but you were really going in so your first grader could pick out which Italian ice flavor they wanted. And they're trying to figure out if there's any sort of equivalent in terms of COVID guidelines. Are they allowed to have ice? Like, what's the deal here? So I know that was in discussion to try to have that draw for people to get their kids are going to want to go vote. So we might as well go vote too. So that's in the conversation. I just needed to find out more. That wasn't something that anything had been made definite yet. So once I find that out, we can also promote that, because the more people you get in the building with their kids, the more likely they are to vote, so.
Maybe I have the PTA raffle, the dinner raffle right next to it. Everybody comes for that. I mean, Centennials, it was like absolutely insane, because whether you have a child in soccer or not, everybody came in for that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll bring that to the
I mean, just delay it by a week or two. It's fine.
That's a good idea.
Anybody have any other questions or thoughts or ideas?
No, thank you so much, ladies, for doing this. I think this was absolutely great. And thank you for thinking of putting together what we discussed earlier with the parents. I think that's phenomenal.
Danielle put on the president's email address. So if parents of younger students want to email us, maybe we can keep a list and start to get something together over the summer for next year to get the information out that people need. Anybody have anything else? No? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.